Hello and welcome to Media7. I'm Russell Brown. There has lately been no shortage of news in the world, and for that matter, there has been no shortage of news about the news. We'll look at both sorts in this show. But first, Sam Mulgrew has our regular look at media numbers, the source.
Wikipedia has turned 10 years old. With 17 million articles in 271 languages, it's now the largest, most used encyclopedia ever. Interestingly, over 86% of the 50,000-odd contributors are male. Not getting so much traffic lately, Egypt. This graph shows what happened in Egypt when the government switched off the internet. 25 billion user minutes were halted. Did you visit 123.100.98.246 today? Update your status on 66.220.149.32? These are IP numbers, the underlying addresses that let computers find each other on the internet, including yours, human. At 3:30 a.m. last Friday, the last of the internet's original IP version 4 addresses were allocated. Effectively, the internet was full. So what now? Well, there's a new IP protocol, IP version 6. It's been around for 5 years, but it's expected to last forever. Interestingly, 35 years ago, so was version 4. Imagine the internet now as the size of a postage stamp. The new IP version 6 address space would be about the size of our whole solar system. 111 million viewers tuned in to see the Green Bay Packers beat the Pittsburgh Steelers, the largest audience in US television history. There aren't so many TiVo moments being had in this part of the world. Number of staff sacked from TiVo's regional licensee before Christmas? 40. Remaining staff for all of Australia and New Zealand? 5. Remaining call centre staff? 0. Remains of TVNZ's $10 million investment in TiVo? Ouch.
Sam Mulgrew there. Now, Wikileaks is perhaps the most compelling media story of our times and the most confounding. It has altered the template of public interest journalism. That much was confirmed recently when Al Jazeera TV launched its own leak, 10 years' worth of confidential notes from Israeli-Palestinian peace talks. Like Wikileaks, Al Jazeera worked with the Guardian newspaper. And now there's a book. Guardian Books Wikileaks, Inside Julian Assange's War on Secrecy, which is so new we don't even have a copy to show you. But I am joined by the former editor of the Guardian's comment pages, Toby Manhire, who only 3 weeks ago was editing the book's manuscript in sunny Point Chevalier, and the founder of Al Jazeera's Asia Bureau, Trish Carter. Welcome to you both. Now, Toby, the book is out. It would be fair to say that this is not at all the last word on this story, is it?
No, it's, if you'll forgive the cliche, it's probably the first chapter. As we speak, Julian Assange, the Wikileaks founder, is in a court in southeast London facing extradition hearings for a Swedish court for rape charges. And so that whole kind of personal drama, that soap opera continues, as does the broader question of what Wikileaks means to the media and to authorities and information control.
And he will have his own book. There's another book by his former second-in-command, jour as well.
Yeah, Daniel Domscheit-Berg, who is starting up his own successor to Wikileaks called OpenLeaks. He's got a book coming out, and Assange himself has a book coming out. He's been through a few potential ghostwriters, or that is to say a few potential ghostwriters have turned down the opportunity to sit in a Norfolk mansion with him and eke it out of him. His is due in early April. I've already placed one wager with one person about whether or not it will emerge on time.
And possibly not, because that's something that comes through in the book, is that he was always late.
Yeah, well, I heard something interesting from a colleague recently, which is that the only way he used to communicate was via instant messaging. So sometimes on Skype or other instant messaging programs, and apparently people were wondering why he wasn't responding instantly, and that's because he was apparently doing 6 conversations at the same time, much like a chess grandmaster or something. And so he's a very busy man, and I think he's not always entirely focused on his immediate target.
And at the moment, he's communicating with the world, among other things, via Twitter. via which he uttered what appeared to be a legal threat over the book, which is extraordinary for someone who has signed a petition against Britain's odious libel laws to threaten to use them.
Yes, it was pretty baffling. Apparently his lawyers have said he won't sue, but he said in a tweet, which we assume to be Assange speaking, it's under the Wikileaks banner, he said that that the Guardian, action would be taken against the Guardian for malicious libel, which, as you say, was kind of baffling from the kind of high priest of free speech, transparency and openness.
Yeah, I suppose it was inevitable in a book written by a Guardian journalist, but I was struck by how much of the heavy lifting on these stories that we've associated with WikiLeaks, the two war diaries and Cablegate, was actually done by the dreaded mainstream media journalists, by quite experienced journalists like David Lee.
Yeah, it was, and I think to be fair to Assange, he realised at a certain point that had to happen. I mean, the reason his organisation is called WikiLeaks is because when it was born, his brainchild was to create a model not unlike Wikipedia, where you have a collaboration among pretty well everyone who gets in and looks at these documents, assesses what they mean, and then shares their analysis with everyone. It soon became clear to him, I think, after he got into this material, the war logs, and then later the diplomatic cables, that was just implausible. There was no way that you could do a great crowdsourced analysis of this material. You needed people who could provide the necessary background, corroboration, contextualisation, who are experts in their field, and that's why I think he saw that he needed to collaborate with established media organisations.
And of course there were New Zealand WikiLeaks cables as well. Out of the Wellington Embassy, journalist Nikki Hager was entrusted with the Cablegate files, 1,500 of them, to broker their use in New Zealand. With his assistance, the Sunday Star-Times ran the first stories on those 1,500 cables from the US Embassy on December 12th. But what, you may wonder, became of Hager's own stories on the cables from Wellington? Good question. We gather they were written for the next edition of the Star-Times, but yanked after the rival Herald on Sunday obtained its own copy of the database and published a cluster of stories on the Herald website on Saturday the 18th. Herald on Sunday editor Bryce Johns would not say where the paper obtained the files, but said no money had changed hands. He admitted the stories selected for advance publication were those he anticipated the Star-Times would feature. They were, in other words, spoilers. What do you make of this, Trish? I find it hard to believe that the paper would have yanked stories by the journalist who you would choose to write them, Nikki Hager.
Look, I was out of the country when this took place, but it seems like a case of too many candy canes before Christmas, doesn't it? It seems a very, very curious decision by the Sunday Star-Times. At the very best, you might change your approach to the stories, you may choose to do it a slightly different way, but I think what in essence this has done is denied the wider public of New Zealand the right to see probably some very good journalism on some very interesting topics.
Indeed, those stories, it looks like they won't be seen. On the other hand, Al Jazeera, your former employer, seems to have made a bravura job of its own leak, the Palestine Papers, and now has its own transparency unit. We seem to be living in the post-WikiLeaks world.
Yes, we do, and the transparency unit is part of the new push. One of the things I'm interested in about the whole WikiLeaks saga is how some of the news organisations are now using this as a great marketing ploy. Al Jazeera certainly is. I don't know about the Guardian, but you know, it is indeed the new wave. I understand, and I've yet to have this properly confirmed, that in actual fact the Palestinian papers and the release of those may have cost Al Jazeera a senior correspondent, and I've yet to find out quite why.
They certainly upset a lot of people with those stories.
They certainly did, and possibly a correspondent who has been there for some time and is very good, so it's something I'll certainly be interested in following up.
And meanwhile, Toby, the Guardian seems to have become the go-to media partner in this new phenomenon of collaborations between news organisations. Al Jazeera's gone there. Do you think we will see the spin-off OpenLeaks do the same sort of thing?
I don't know. It wouldn't surprise me if OpenLeaks formed some formal or informal relationship with papers in the UK and elsewhere. The Guardian has a history of being open to collaboration more than others, and so I think that's one of the reasons people come there. Al Jazeera, there are some links with some senior journalists at the Guardian, such as Seamus Milne and Ian Black, that were really important there, I think. And the Guardian is blessed not to have a proprietorial model or a commercial imperative to to force them away from potential collaborations with other
and
organisations.
that's similar with Al Jazeera too, and it's interesting that, I think, isn't it? There is absolutely no pressure. It does give you a fearless approach, and it's one of the few organisations, of course, that has that, and it's incredibly important.
Meanwhile, Toby, we have the soap opera of the extradition hearings. Is WikiLeaks at the point where its rock star chief philosopher is actually starting to impede what it's trying to do?
I think that, in a way, happened a while ago. I mean, if you look at the number of defections from WikiLeaks and the number of internal arguments they had, probably that's true. But I don't think any of that should take away from the role that Assange has played in all of this. He has done some amazing things. He's been incredibly brave. Occasionally he has some flourishes which seem unusual, but for all that, I think he should be applauded for the things he's done.
Yeah, he seems to me to be a man of extraordinary talents. Well, we'll take a break now and be back soon with a look at Al Jazeera, Egypt and Rupert Murdoch's Great White Hope.